Hey, how's it going? So, right, in a Los Angeles airport, flight attendants Jenny and Paula are getting themselves all ready for the next flight. The captain, Forrest, and his co-pilot, Wilsey, are chatting with them and note they won't have very many passengers tonight on account of the storms. Wilsey also takes some medicine because, well, he's not feeling so good. Then, the flight attendants get to meet the night's passengers. George is a teenager who always flies alone and really doesn't like to be bothered. Bev came with her husband, Dr. Kingston, whose Parkinson's disease keeps him from moving or speaking. The army doctor, Shyla, is nervous about flying, while Louise is just relaxing with her cat. Neil and Susan are expecting a baby and are pretty particular, so they wipe down their seats before sitting. Ivor and Nika are a couple of excited foreigners who don't speak English very well. Henry brought a cage with some hamsters, and when Ralph tries to help him put it up in the storage compartment, he gets bitten in the process for his trouble. The cage doesn't fit in that compartment, so the flight attendants have to force Henry to send it down to the cargo hold. The businessman, Preston, keeps on sneezing, apparently sick with the same thing as Wilsey. When the plane finally takes off, Jenny has to remind Neil to shut off his phone, and when he refuses, Henry forces him to do it. The two guys get pretty ticked off and argue, so Jenny sends them back to their seats, reminding them that they could totally be arrested upon landing if they didn't behave themselves. After that, Henry flirts a bit with Jenny, talking all about his PhD and his work in the country. A few moments later, Henry is watching the news and discovers that the Disease Control Center has completely surrounded an apartment building back in Los Angeles. Meanwhile, Ralph isn't feeling well and asks for some water, all while looking at the cut on his thumb. Jenny notices that he's sitting kind of weirdly, and just when she goes to check on him, he suddenly throws up all over her. His mouth is foaming as he demands to get off the plane, so the flight attendants try to take care of him. Nobody even notices the cat eating the vomit off the floor. Jenny leaves the guy with Paula and goes to clean herself up, but right then, Ralph sprints down the aisle and shoves her aside. He starts banging on the cockpit door, yelling for the plane to stop. Wilsey follows protocol and locks the door, while Forrest alerts ground control about the whole situation. Henry tries to stop Ralph, but is easily overpowered, and the exact same thing happens with George. So then, Preston, George, Paula, and Shyla all join Henry to hold Ralph down and eventually knock him out cold. Using some plastic restraints, they tie up his wrists. Afterwards, Shyla checks to make sure nobody got hurt, while Jenny privately vents to Paula about how she failed to be useful during the emergency. Right at that moment, Forrest announces that he's received orders to land and tells everyone to get to their seats. The plane is shaking a lot as it descends, and the attendants teach everyone how to keep their heads down. Ralph's body keeps sliding around and hitting his head, so Jenny and Paula have to struggle to move him into a seat. While Paula is wrestling with the seatbelt, Ralph wakes up with red eyes and bites her nose, injuring her very badly. Then, Ralph just goes berserk, and once again, the passengers have to team up to shove him into the washroom, locking him inside. When the plane finally lands, Shyla uses the emergency first aid kit to give Paula some medicine that'll stop her from going into shock. Shyla ties a scarf around Paula's face, but she's losing a lot of blood and is in need of immediate medical attention. Forrest is getting frustrated because ground control is telling them to just wait, even though they know about the emergency. He decides he's going to break the rules and picks an unassigned gate. Luckily, the baggage handler, Ed, sees the plane coming and manages to get the gate open just in time. Forrest and Wilsey hold the plane's washroom door shut while everyone else gets out desperately, except for Bev and Kingston, who need some help to move. Ed then guides the group to the other side of the gate, but that door is locked and no one's answering the request on the radio. They have no other choice but to follow Ed through an employee entrance to get into the airport's staging area. The group heads down the stairs, and Ed gets to the other doors, but he's surprised to find they are all locked, which is something that never happens. When he checks the power board, he confirms that they are on a full lockdown, and everything they do will be seen by the security cameras, which are still active. An argument about what to do next starts up, but it's cut short by the sudden sound of sirens. They look through the window and see ambulances and police cars outside, but then the window gets covered up. A voice announces that the group has been placed under quarantine and must wait until help arrives. The passengers call their families to tell them what's going on before they all gang up to yell at Jenny, seeing her as the airline's representative. Jenny has no idea how to defend herself, but thankfully, Shyla cuts through the shouting to point out she has a medical kit in her luggage that could help Paula survive. Jenny takes Ed and a few passengers with her to find Shyla's luggage, but right at that moment, the power goes out. Ed guides them with his flashlight, and when they get back to the plane, they discover that Wilsey and Forrest are gone. Jenny opens the washroom and is horrified to see blood absolutely everywhere. Preston goes to grab his laptop and bumps into Kingston, who is just sitting there all alone. His wife has disappeared, and when the others wonder what happened, Kingston uses his eyes to point towards a pair of plastic cuffs on the floor, which have been chewed right through. Meanwhile, Ed cuts the carpet on the floor to get to a hatch that takes them directly into the baggage compartment. Jenny gets a hold of Shyla's medical kit, while Neil grabs a gun from his own bag. Ed gets spooked when a rodent runs past his feet and he shoos it away, saying it was a rat, but Henry thinks it was just one of his hamsters because he found the broken cage. When Jenny gets out of the baggage hold, she looks around and spots Preston's laptop covered in blood. At the end of the jet bridge, Wilsey is scrambling on all fours, growling and also covered in blood. Suddenly, an infected Forrest appears right behind Jenny and attacks her. The guys immediately come to help, but punching does no good, so Neil shoots him until he's dead, while a little bit of Forrest's blood splatters onto his face. After that, the group runs out of the plane, and in the gate hallway, they find Kingston thrown from his wheelchair and Preston unconscious, with a bite mark on the back of his neck. Nearby, Jenny finds Bev crying and asking for help, but then she suddenly turns and attacks as well. Luckily, Jenny manages to get away, and the guys shove a door shut to lock her in. The group gets back to the others, and Shyla does her best to take care of Paula. Susan cleans the blood from Neil's face, and they even share a quick kiss. Henry and Ed pile furniture in front of the door to keep Bev outside. Jenny looks around, finding droplets of blood on the floor and worrying about where they came from. Finally losing her cool, Jenny tells everyone to shut up and takes charge, since the captain is now dead. Shyla explains that this isn't any known disease, and Jenny remembers the building on the news that was also under quarantine. Kingston notices a rat with very red eyes nearby, but he can barely make a sound, so nobody hears him. The rat falls onto his head and manages to bite him before George can knock it off. While the guys capture the rat in a bucket, Shyla tends to the wound. Then, the group decides to lock George and Paula in a closet, just in case they also turn. Ed uses a glove to pick up the rat and notices a tag on its leg, indicating that it escaped from a laboratory. George says that Henry brought it and lied about the hamsters, because he's positive he saw Longtails in the cage earlier on. When Henry denies it, Jenny pulls him aside to demand the truth, and Henry swears it wasn't him, pointing out that lab rats wouldn't have made it past security. As they're hugging for comfort, all of a sudden, Ralph appears and jumps on Jenny, ignoring Henry's attempts to stop him. The others hear the screams and rush over to help, combining their strength to strangle Ralph with a fire hose. At that exact moment, Ed gets a message on his radio saying the CDC has finally arrived. The group gathers at the door, but 4 agents come inside instead of letting them out. They keep the group at gunpoint while they take the rat and Neil's gun. After that, they go over to Paula and Kingston to give them injections. The group demands an explanation, but the agents only say that it's standard protocol. The agents then demand that the others must also accept the injection. Everyone hesitates, so Louise volunteers to go first, but just before she gets the shot, her cat bites her on the neck and runs off, while one agent opens fire and misses every single shot. Kingston finally turns and leaps on the guy to bite him. The other agents shoot Kingston and try to carry their partner away, but find the door is now locked. They shoot the door to force it open and run outside. Then, Ivor takes a chance and follows after them. The police open fire as soon as they see them and kill everyone except for one agent who's only hit in the leg. The group drags the surviving agent back inside before they close the door. Right then, they hear the roars of the infected people getting closer, so they run to hide inside a large shipping container. Susan stops when she notices Neil is foaming at the mouth, so the others have to drag her away while explaining that he's infected too. After closing up the container, Shyla points out that every injection had a different color, so everyone was getting something different. Henry reveals he grabbed a gun and forces the agent to confess what he knows. It turns out he's not from the CDC, but from an organization called CBDT, which works under the Department of Homeland Security. One of their units went to that apartment in Los Angeles a few hours ago, but nobody made it out. In the attic, they found a bioterrorism lab that was set up by a cult. They had tried to develop some kind of cure based on a survivor, but it only made the situation much worse, implying that this group was going to be the next human trial. After confirming that the rats do carry the disease, the agent grabs the gun from Henry and gives up. Nika has a full-blown breakdown, while Ed remembers that this terminal often floods because of an old drainage tunnel, which means they could possibly escape through it if they could find it. Suddenly, Wilsey appears in an opening at the top of the container and grabs Ed's hand. Henry then tries to shoot him, but he's all out of bullets. Ed tells George to hit a button that raises the container, and it crushes Wilsey against a support beam. After that's done, the group leaves the container, and Ed guides them through the area while Jenny notices that Henry has gone missing. Nika is walking behind, and suddenly something drags her away from the others. So the group runs up a set of stairs to get away. Secretly, Henry is grabbing a bag that has another gun in it. As the group is running, Jenny trips and finds Paula, who has also turned. Jenny has to accept that her friend is gone and uses a wrench to fight the creature until she can push it off the platform, killing it. So, the group gets to an office where they look for the terminal's blueprints, which show there's a path through a wall to find the drainage tunnel. Meanwhile, George reveals that he stole Henry's bag, and inside, he finds suspicious documents recording lab experiments, plus a mysterious box. At that moment, Susan and Neil find them and try to attack, but Henry comes back and shoots them both just in time. Ed notices that Henry has been bitten, and George takes the chance to open the box, revealing a bunch of medicine and a syringe. Henry finally admits that he brought the rats and explains that he's part of the cult the agent had mentioned. Their goal is to cleanse the planet of humans, who are becoming more violent and destructive every single day. Henry threatens to kill Jenny if George doesn't hand over the antidote. So, Ed jumps on him to stop him, but he ends up getting killed. The others are now terrified and let Henry take the antidote, which he mixes with blood from his wound. He injects it into his eye, explaining that his group has followers in various organizations, and that's how he managed to get the rats through airport security. Now, Henry is ready to leave and wants to take George along as a hostage. Jenny tries to stop him, but Henry just knocks her down and escapes with the boy and the blueprints. Jenny is really dizzy, so Shyla heads out first. A few minutes later, Jenny leaves too and is found by an infected Preston. A chase begins, and Preston nearly grabs her, so Jenny has to kick him away. Afterwards, she lures him towards a machine and smashes his head with a heavy lid until he dies. Next, she keeps looking for George and needs to take a different path when she sees a transformed Nika close by. Entering another room, she bumps right into Shyla, who took the agent's thermal goggles. Shyla puts the goggles on Jenny and reveals that she was bitten. She then asks Jenny to go after George while she buys them some time. Shyla goes back to the main room and yells loudly to attract the attention of the remaining infected, who immediately jump on her to kill her. Jenny finds a hole in the wall that Henry made to get to the tunnel, and just as she's about to enter, she's grabbed by Louise. Using the wrench, she hits Louise until she knocks her down. Then, Jenny walks through the section between the walls, noticing drops of blood on the floor. Thanks to the goggles, she gets spooked when she sees some animals, but they're just regular mice, not the lab rats. Following the blood trail, Jenny finds the blueprints and Henry's shirt beside a ladder that goes down into the drainage tunnel. She looks down and finds George, who explains that the antidote didn't actually work and that Henry has turned as well. Ignoring George's warnings, Jenny climbs down and notices blood dripping onto the goggles. Suddenly, Henry appears and attacks her, making her drop the goggles before he starts throwing her around the place. While Jenny tries to hold him off, George puts on the goggles and grabs the gun, shooting Henry. Now that she's free, Jenny gets the goggles back and uses the wrench to finish Henry off with a final blow to the head. At that moment, huge flames appear in the opening, indicating that the teams outside are now burning the entire terminal down. The way out is blocked, but Jenny finds a baggage tunnel and kicks the cover off. George is too scared to go down, so Jenny gives him the goggles and lets him go first to safety. While they hear explosions from outside, the pair moves as fast as they possibly can. Jenny soon starts to get tired and realizes that she's been infected. George turns around and sees her throwing up, but he refuses to leave her behind. Jenny agrees to keep following him, but only for his sake. Eventually, they find the exit, which is blocked by some bars. George manages to just squeeze through them, and when he turns around again, a transformed Jenny tries to attack him through the bars. Luckily, she's too big to get through, and Jorge gets away from her by taking off his jacket. After that, Jorge finally manages to escape the airport. Meanwhile, Louise's cat also escapes and heads off into the city. And that's how Quarantine 2, a 2011 horror and sci-fi movie, ends. And I see you in the next video.